to start off with, you see, what is happening is just that in India, CSR is something that we are all aware of. This is a concept, especially last 20, 30 years, ever since liberalization has happened. It's something that all the corporations are getting into. A lot of them are required as a mandatory activity if they are very big. And it is a wonderful instrument because it allows us to get involved with all the numerous challenges they have in India. Any field we have, social sector. And what happens is this, that obviously all the people who have been working, it's not enough. It's better others. And corporate sector obviously is the richest, the most resourceful. It should get involved, get its hands directly into this kind of thing. So it's a great thing. Now, what happens is that another thing, as I mentioned, liberalization, post-liberalization is when we have seen this thing happening in a big way. Another thing that happened post liberalization is all our corporations are now reaching out to the world, especially Western countries where they have the bigger corporates. They have corporates with resources, technology, and certainly a long track record to help them out. And there's investment, there are all kinds of inputs coming from them. And what's happening over the last few years, as you may have noticed too, is know-how coming also in CSR. And that is the area I want to focus on because I'm of the opinion that, a lot of things, yes, we need know-how, but CSR is something we have to figure out because our challenges are different. And more importantly, we have some amazing people in India and institutions and a long track record, which most of us are not aware of. We have had CSR before that concept was coined, that acronym came out. So that is the first thing. I would like to focus on how Western countries have been, say, 100 years back, all the big corporates, almost 100 years back, which would be early part of the 20th century, and what we were doing in India at the same time, what our corporates were doing at the same time, and businesses, what were they doing in terms of social responsibility. So that is the first part. Second part, I would like to focus on how we have to seek out role models, inspirations right here. So I would like to first start off with the West, and I want to start with a very, very, intriguing proposition for you. If you think of it, what is common? What is the connection between, say, Hitler and a pair of Adidas? What's common? What's linked to Adidas as well as say, a bottle of Coke and Fanta, or for that matter, say, Ford car company, or for that matter, Chanel perfume. And also, how does this link with Mahatma Gandhi here? How does it link with his ashrams? How does it link with Bajaj scooter, for example? Or another connection like that, which would be, say, Dr. Ambedkar, father of our constitution. How does he link up with, say, this person called Ajay Bhatt? Now, Ajay Bhatt doesn't ring any bell for most of you people, but he's probably one of the very significant persons because he's connected to every single mobile phone you people are using right now or have in your pockets. So that these are the connections. I call them, what you have heard that concept, 6 degrees of separation, right? I would call it 4 degrees. A lot of these connections that I'm going to highlight are actually very, very close. So that's my presentation. Now, first thing I want to highlight is this, that if you know the person that would be ideal to look at this concept of CSR would be somebody who you would never ever associate with a positive idea at all. I'm talking about Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler, as I said, how is he connected to all these things I said? And that is where the story starts. Back in 1933, when he took over, January 33, he took over Germany completely, became the chancellor over there. And in next 6 years, 39 to 45, Germany, which was one of the most poor, one of the most stressed countries, they went through a super inflation, such a inflation that you had to take a wheelbarrow full of cash to the market to buy a loaf of bread, and they had reparations, they had sanctions, all kinds of challenges. And of course, they had lost the war, as in World War One also. So in that period, how he managed to make his country, so militarily and industrially powerful, one of the most powerful countries in the world, and of course used it for very, very negative ends, as we know. Yeah. And other thing is that what were the processes involved? So first part of it is that the fact that he had two treaties with USSR, which made him, which allowed Germany to actually bypass a lot of the international sanctions, a lot of international restrictions they had post World War One. So that was the first thing. But there's another side. That side was focusing on the issue of technology. So I'll just focus on that. So Germany managed to get technology which made it create a amazing maybe a very very positive sounding word, but they created this incredible war machinery in which they managed to overtake, attack neighboring countries using this new concept, which was called Blitzkrieg, which I may be pronouncing it slightly wrong, German word. But essentially, it means that you are able to attack your neighbors, you are able to take a opposing side in no time at all, and in a very, very coordinated manner with all kinds of machinery, tanks, armored cars, planes, and all of that, such that the opposition has no time at all to react. And in that process, Germany managed to, take over, grab Norway in 2 months' time, Belgium in 18 days, and Yugoslavia in just 11 days, Netherlands in 5 days, and it took just 1 day to take over Denmark also. So this was the strategy. This was a method that they used. And it was very, very unusual because it allowed no time for any kind of political reactions, any kind of military responses, and certainly no diplomatic responses. And that's how they went on and they managed to, take over. And this whole thing precipitated, this created the whole World War II as we know, ended up killing something like 20 million people, and this was a scenario which was made possible by technology. Now what was the technology? That technology was this, that all the tanks, armor cars, they are having these very new advanced engines, allowed them to go over this very difficult terrain very very quickly in an unprecedented manner, and those engines were provided by Ford USA, through their German operations. And so you can say that was at the heart of this whole challenge. Henry Ford, as you know, was the person who also invented the concept of assembly line production. And this was a concept he also introduced in Germany. This was what they had used. So it was also not just technology, also a management concept there, which allowed Germany to produce a lot of armaments and all this armed forces materials at very fast speed and in great volumes. So you can say in a way that Henry Ford was probably the person most responsible for creating this challenge, which got bigger and bigger until it became a worldwide conflict. Henry Ford also did something else. He started publishing a local newspaper in the US, which was promoting Nazi ideology. He was himself writing for it as a column, which Nazis were ended up quoting and all of that, and these kind of things. So at the same time, what happens is that in 1936, with the money he was making all over the world, they had subsidiaries all over the world. The one in Germany, for example, was one of their most profitable ones. They have this all under the screen. We still don't have details. They don't want to share it, obviously. But so we do not know to what extent that money from Nazi Germany came in use. But fact is this, that that is when he set up Ford Foundation, which was one of the first CSR, you can say corporate philanthropic effort, certainly a gold standard and a pioneer in the field of CSR. So that's where you can say in many ways CSR starts off. And I do not know, and nobody knows how much of work they actually managed to do with that in terms of any social work. But yes, 2 years after that, Nazi Germany, actually, they sent a entire delegation to to Detroit. They gave Henry Ford their one of their biggest awards, Order of the German Eagle or something it was called in German, which was also given to Mussolini, for example. But that is the honor he got, I guess, for whatever CSR and non-CSR work he was doing. But that is where that story goes. So this is the story of Western corporations. Now you would imagine that there might have been a lot of questions asked, but they were not. Why? Because almost all prominent old corporations that we think of today have some connection or other to that whole very, very questionable period. I'll give you 2, 3 examples. If you think of, say, uh, Chanel perfumes, right? Very, very big brand, one of the biggest fashion brands. Coco Chanel, the founder of that, she managed to kick out her Jewish partners using her Nazi connections and also using the new laws which Nazis had put in Nazi occupied France. So that is how it helped her in that case. Similarly, if you look at something like, say, Coke, Coca-Cola was dealing with Coke in Nazi Germany, was dealing with, you had sanctions toward the later part of Hitler's era. And what they did was they managed to figure out that, okay, we cannot import the concentrate and all of that. So they invented a new beverage to circumvent the sanctions. That beverage was called Fanta. Okay. So similarly, when the Nazis got into rounding up all of these Jews, as you know, they killed 6 million of them. So they needed, some way to do it. It's all across Europe. That's when there was this very well-known company. We all use it, IBM. IBM helped Nazis round up the Jews. So it was something very, very questionable, unbelievable. But these people, all of them were involved. And they're not, the General Motors was also making trucks and armed vehicles for Nazi Germany. So a lot of these people were involved, and I would say too many of them were involved. So Berlin, for example, we know that when they had the Olympics, it was used to promote a very, very racist idea. And that time was also the time when a small shoe company decided to use it to become a global brand. That was Adidas. So that is how it is, because there are too many players. Perhaps that's why they have never got around to putting or taking them to task. Now, so if from Western world, let's come to India. Let's see what Indian corporations. Obviously, we are far smaller. We didn't have as many corporations we have today. What were these people doing? And so we come to that period, and you find that it was a very, very different scenario. What happens is this, that our corporates, for example, if you look at people like, if you look at in India, you have all these people, for example, our freedom struggle, if you take a look at it, you will find that no, before I get into that, let's look at the corporations, because we didn't, as I said, we didn't have too many of them, but our Maharajas, Nawabs, these are the people who are actually the corporates, because they're all, a lot of them are running industries, manufacturing, mining, some of them are running railways and things like that, private airlines also. So these kind of things are being done by these people. And out of that, I'll give you one or two examples. For example, if you have Nizam of Hyderabad, he was the one who funded, various squadrons of the Royal Air Force. These are used to fight the Nazis. Battle of Britain, one of the most decisive battle. Why? Because that was the first battle which was complete air warfare. And that battle we had used, and that battle was also the first time Nazis lost. That was the beginning of end of Hitler. So it's very important. Nizam, as well as the Maharaj of Bikaner, these are people who contributed to that whole process. Now we come to our own corporate houses, for example. We didn't have, as I said, not too many of them were there. But you had people like, say, Birlas, you had people like Bajaj. And these people, as you know very well, they are involved with the freedom struggle in India. They are the ones, if you think of it, in India, as you know, the biggest player in our freedom struggle was the Indian National Congress, the biggest party, mass base, people from all over the country involved in that. And these people were doing two things. Freedom struggle in case of India, unlike all the other countries which are also fighting colonialism, freedom struggle in India was a cultural and social renaissance. We had this idea, we are not trying to kick out British. We are also trying to get rid of exploitation of centuries, remove all the injustices, because you don't want that there's another brown person who was again doing all kinds of things to us. So it was a very, very big, larger process. And you had, whether it is a social issue, say what Mahatma Gandhi was doing, Khadi, Sabarmati Ashram, all kinds of things. All of that was coming out of that. And so was the political part, Dandi March and all of that. And these are all funded by these people. The various, I just give you two examples. There are a lot of them who were involved in all of that. And these are very, very important for two reasons. A, when you think of it, what happened in that period is something that has informed public policy in India for last 75 years. If you look at our policies, like if you now, for example, present government, for example, when it's talking about Make in India, that idea goes back a long way. It goes back to Mahatma Gandhi, for example. A lot of other things that you look at, why are foreign policies in a certain way? It's because we had these ideas from before and, how it evolved. We are the first country, for example, to put sanctions on South Africa all the way back in 1948. And we are the ones at the forefront of a lot of social issues all along. So these were things which are enabled by our leaders of that time. And in turn, these people were enabled in financially in a lot of ways by our corporate houses of that time. Not very many, not as rich as their Western counterparts, not famous at all, but these are the people who did that. And similarly, what happens is that you have these other people. For example, when you think of social justice, you'll find something like, Dr. Ambedkar going across to London School of Economics, going across to Columbia. That was funded by Maharaja of Baroda. Okay, so he made that happen. Similarly, he set up, you will not believe when we say the father of library, public libraries in India, it is, you would think, okay, it must be this person, it must be that person, some famous person. It was actually Maharaja of Baroda, because he ensured there's one library in every, not only town, but every district in his entire empire. So he promoted that public library system. Similarly, the midday meal scheme, which we have in India, it is now all over India. It started in Tamil Nadu in 1962 under Chief Minister Kamaraj. But you have a precedent that Maharaja of Mysore started it first. So similarly, you have all these progressive things which have these wonderful roots going back to these people who are technically maybe not corporate houses, but certainly industrialists and certainly the elites of India. And they seem to be far more sensitive towards these social justice issues than other people. The example I gave you of Nizam of Hyderabad and Bikaner Maharaja supporting squadrons. Now, when you think of it, it's incredible, because each squadron is like 12 aircraft or 24 aircraft, and that can cost you in today's time something like $500 million. Okay. So, if you take that time, the inflation and the cost and all of that, you'll discover that that money these people put in was probably bigger than most of the CSR projects that we think of today. So it was just unbelievable. And similarly, if you look at the work now coming to these people, 20% of mankind was represented by India, undivided India. And that freedom was backed by these people, which is just unreal. So I think these are the unsung heroes. We need to study them more and seek inspiration from them as opposed to the Western world, because that is not as great as we have been told all this time. Thank you.